Hey everyone, welcome back. Today we're tackling a transformation that trips up even the experienced Power Query users. Taking a text file that, like you see here, and I'll show you the full one in a second, where each record spans multiple rows, converted it into a clean analytical table like what you see over here on the right. This is one of those problems where people think Power Query doesn't have a feature for it, but it absolutely does. And you'll just need to understand how Power Query thinks. So here's the file. Let me bring it up. This is the file that we have here. I've generated basically 100 records, and each record looks like this. You have 3 lines per record, so you can see 3 lines per record. And then you have a blank line that separates the new section or new segment of customer records. Now those are patterns that we need to look at. We got 3 lines per record and then a blank line. So this is a very important once we get into Power Query. And this pattern repeats itself basically 100 times. If you've ever worked with logs, form exports, or even semi-structured text, this probably looks familiar. Now let's bring this into Power Query. So let's go over here. Let's go back to data from text CSV. Give it a second to load up. Okay, let's go over here. And this is the file that we're going to load up, import. Okay, what Power Query did, if you look over here to the left, you could see that it has another common thing, a delimiter, a colon between the key field and its value. So Power Query automatically detected this, the colon delimiter, and it separated the two fields into 2 separate columns. So it did a lot of work for us already. So let's go back down here to transform data. And as you can see here, it created a column 1 and a column 2. And column 1 is the actual field name that we want to turn into column names. So you got the customer, order ID, and the amount. And then column 2 is actually the value for each key field here. Okay, so our first step here, remember those commonalities that we had. We had 3 rows per record, then a blank line. So let's first remove the blank rows. So if we go up to home, remove rows, and remove blank rows. Okay, that takes care of the first issue. Next, we need to tell Power Query how to group these rows into records. So in other words, each record is going to have 3 lines before it gets to the next record. So we'll have to add an index column first. So let's go over to add column and then index column, and we're going to start from 0. So it created this here, right here. So it sequentially goes up through all the rows. Okay, now our next step is we must create a group column, okay, that assigns each set of 3 rows to the same record. So we could do that by, again, adding a column, custom column. We don't need to name it anything right now because we're gonna remove it later on. So we're going to type in a formula here, and it's called number dot, let's go over here, number dot integer divide is what we're going to be using. And then we're going to pass it the column name, which is our index column. Okay. So we need to put that in brackets. Okay. And then our next argument is 3. And I'll explain this in a second. Let's close that out and then click OK. Okay, I misspelled something, so let's go back into the gear icon. Got that. Okay, let's go to OK. Okay, what this did now, as you can see, it gave it a separate integer, okay, that's going to be unique for each single value in a particular record. So it started out with 0, and then the next 3 set of records here going to be associated with number 1. So what does that formula do? So number dot integer divide, let's go back in here. So what this does, it divides the value in the index column, which is 0 in this case, for the first one, and then it divides that number by 3. So in this case, 0 divided by 3 is basically going to be 0, and it drops the remainder. So if we go down to the next one, if you take 3 divided by 3, it's going to give you 1. So it's going to continue to do that for each one of these. So in other words, if you take 5 divided by 3, you're still going to get 1, but it's going to be a remainder, and it's going to drop that. So it consecutively goes up. Now, if you take 6 divided by 3, you're going to get 2. So that's what it does over here. So now we got groups. Now we could basically, this is a key step that turns a messy text file into structured data. Now let's remove the index column because we don't need it. So right click on here, remove. Now let's explain, we need to pivot this. So in other words, we need to, if you come over here, Barbara Clock, the first record, we need now to pivot these key values, which is customer, order ID, and amount, into column IDs. And then we're going to place the individual values for each of those key values into rows. So, and we do that by pivoting. So what does pivot column actually do? Because this is where most people get confused. Pivot column takes the unique values in one column. In our case, okay, it's going to be customer, order ID, and the amount, and turns them into column headers. Then it fills those new columns with values from the values column, which happens to be column 2. Okay, so instead of 3 rows per record, we'll get 1 row with 3 different columns. So now let's go up here and select column 1, because we're going to pivot off of that, and we're going to go to transform, and then pivot column. Okay, and what's going to be, our pivot column is going to be column 1, but our values column is going to be column 2. So we're going to do that. We're going to select that. Okay, and then we're going to go to advanced options, and we're going to select don't aggregate, and then we're going to explain that in a second. So let's click OK. And see what it did here. It created a new row with all the values in it, and then flipped the column 1 into column headers. And we're going to get rid of this column right here. So let's explain the values column here. Choosing the right values column is critical. The values column is the column that contains the actual data you want to appear in the pivoted table. If you accidentally choose column 1 as the column's value, which was column 1 happened to be the headers, Power Query will try to put customer order ID and amount into cells, which makes no sense. So always pivot the field names and use the field values as the values column. And why did we select Don't Aggregate? Now let's talk about the Don't Aggregate option, because this confuses a lot of people. Power Query assumes that when you pivot, you might have multiple values of the same field, okay, in the same group. For example, if you pivot sales by region, you might have multiple sales amounts per region. So Power Query then asks, how do you want to combine them? Sum them, average them, or count. But in our file, each field appears exactly once per record. Okay? There's only one customer, only one order ID, and only one amount per record. Okay? So we don't want Power Query to combine anything. We just want it to place the value directly into the cell, which is what we see here. That's what Don't Aggregate means. It tells Power Query, don't sum or don't average these values, just use the values as is. Now you can see the result, a clean analytical table with 100 rows. This is exactly what analysts need. One row per record, one column per field. So let's wrap up. So first of all, let's get rid of this because we don't need it, and then we'll load it back into Excel. So we're going to remove this. Okay. So that's how you take a messy multi-line text file that you see here and turn it into a clean data set using Power Query. Now the key concepts that we learned is Power Query already split the data for us using a colon delimiter in the beginning, and that's how we got the 2 columns. We then used IntegerDivide function to create record groups. We then pivoted the column, which rotates field names into headers, and the values column supplies the actual data. And then when we did a Don't Aggregate, it prevents Power Query from combining values that shouldn't be combined. So once you understand these ideas, you can handle almost any semi-structured text file. So let's just load this back into Excel. And we're just going to default it to a table, close and load. And see, now we have a clear analytical table that was first grabbed from this file here. I'll show you. The file that we started out with, and this is how we transformed it into an analytical data. And everything on the left here, what's in the Excel spreadsheet, can now be used for more analysis through pivot tables, charts, etc. So hopefully this tutorial was helpful for you today, and hopefully you learned a new skill on parsing data from a text file that's not necessarily structured and turn it into a powerful analytical table like you see here. Thank you again for stopping by. You have a great day. Remember to subscribe to my channel, and as always, please like and share this video because it helps to get it out to more people. Thank you, and I'll see you on the next video. Bye now.